truck in the proper place, and remember to put the battery on charge. At the start of your next shift, always check the truck thoroughly. Examine the battery levels. Make sure the horn works. Check the controls. Not forgetting the handbrake. Check that the forklift and reach mechanisms are working properly every time you start work. It must be a daily routine because lives may depend on it. For one reason or another, there are nearly 20 deaths every year in Britain involving forklift trucks. Reach trucks are powerful machines, but that can make them dangerous in careless hands. They work in confined spaces and lift very heavy loads to high storage positions. The load is carried within the wheelbase to create a low, safe center of gravity. But reach trucks are surprisingly powerful when traveling from A to B. Corners and doors always need care. Be prepared to creep up and stop if necessary. Don't hesitate to use the horn. It's the only way other people know you're there in a busy, sometimes noisy warehouse. The general rule when driving an unladen truck is to keep the forks behind you. But common sense tells you there are exceptions to every rule. It makes sense downhill to change the rule so the forks are ahead of you. That way you have more stability. In the same way, if you're traveling uphill with an unladen truck, you'll have better stability with the forks behind you. When approaching a slope, remember, you may have to raise the forks a little to clear the ground. This applies whether you're traveling up or down. Now, what about the reach mechanism when driving loaded or unloaded? It's easy to pick up bad habits in a busy warehouse. It may save time to drive with the reach out, but that's a shortcut to disaster. The point is, for a driver, be prepared for obstructions and keep your reach in. So what have we seen so far? Even simple parking of a reach truck can cause problems in a busy warehouse. You should always take out the key. You never know who's about. And take time to go through the proper startup checks. You need to test the brakes, horn and all lifting functions to ensure total safety and for good, reliable operation. Driving an unloaded truck may look easy, but don't forget, keep the forks behind you, unless you're going downhill or are about to pick up a load. Don't speed. You never know what's around the corner or through the doors, and be careful on slopes. Always keep the reach in and your eyes on the lookout. Now for the next stage, picking up a load. Believe it or not, there is an easy way of getting into the correct position. Let's see how it works. Good modern reach trucks can turn almost on the spot. So, drive forks first so that the wheel is just past the center point of the pallet. Put on a full lock and turn the truck. Hey presto, your forks are bang on target. So, now let's lift a pallet. Oh, his forks are at the wrong height. Always take care when lifting heavy loads at height. Treat them with respect. Think of the damage that can be caused. For standard racking with normal reach trucks, you can tape the mast to indicate each beam level. Every time the fork rises to the level, the two pieces of tape meet, and you know you're there. Exactly. Some trucks have height indicators, but you need to know the height of each beam level in advance. Even with the most advanced machines that allow the best view of high-level handling, you must be accurate when it comes to fork heights. Another important consideration is the size and weight of pallet loads. Pallets can vary in size. Some are 800 by 1200 millimeters, others are 1000 by 1200 millimeters. Some can be used both ways. Some are free entry, others fully boarded. Most of the time, you may know what to expect in your working environment, but don't always assume. On the ground or in racking where short pallets may be positioned close together, this can easily happen. The way round it is to keep a lookout for non-standard pallets. Then mark their position on your forks so you know how far to insert them. So, short pallets need to be picked up on the end of your forks. But to be safe, you need some idea of the weight of the load. The maximum weight your truck can safely lift is based on the 1200mm long pallet. The load is centered on the halfway point, which is 600mm from the heel of the forks. Lifting a short load of the same weight on the end of your forks will create an imbalance. So, the further the load is from the heel, the lighter it has to be. It's all a question of balance. To balance a longer load, the weight must be less than the maximum allowed in the normal position, due to the load center shifting away from the heel. Inside your cab is a table of load weights for different load centers. Use it to keep your truck and your feet safely on the ground. Let's take on a load from the very beginning. The 90-degree turn. Take the wheel just past the center point of the pallet and put on full lock. Hand brake. Good. Now, you know the height of the beam. Be careful to check the size of the pallet and the weight of the load, checking the load center as you go. Raise your forks. At eye level, check the tilt. Continue raising them until the markers meet or the indicator point is reached. Creep the truck in. Brake. And finally, carefully reach out. Raise the load a few centimeters, tilt the forks up, and reach in. Then creep the truck back so that the load clears the racking. Never operate the reach or raise or lower the forks without the handbrake on. Lower the load, and if it's a short pallet that isn't at the heel of the forks, lower it to the floor and reposition it to the heel before driving off. Driving with a load is in many ways similar to driving without. The most important thing is to maintain visibility at all times. Always drive with the load behind you, unless you're positioning the load to deposit it. Earlier, we saw the need to slow down at bends, through doors and in busy areas. Remember, the horn is a vital warning to others, as long as it's used in time. But carrying a load on a slope, uh-oh! So, on a slope, adopt the opposite rule to driving unladen. Downhill, keep the forks behind. Uphill, keep them in front. The load is always above you, leaning back into the heel. Another way of looking at slopes is unladen, forks face down, laden, forks face up. The worst way to drive a load is with it still aloft and with the reach out. Even experienced drivers do it sometimes with wide loads, apparently to clear obstacles on the ground. What about obstacles up above? Or a tight bend? There is no safe way to carry a load high in the air. This test rig shows that if the load is heavy enough, high enough, crossing a slope or leaning out on a bend, then enough risk factors may come together to trip the balance. Driving with your load raised is the most unstable thing you can do with a reach truck. Remember that any damaged vehicle or load costs dearly, in expensive repair downtime and in lost revenue. There may be a personal price to pay too. In Britain, there are more than 1,000 people seriously injured every year when struck by a forklift truck. About 200 result in fractures or even amputations. More than 100 people are seriously injured by falling loads. So, these accepted good driving techniques, developed over many years of experience, are worth knowing. They transfer the power of reach trucks safely into your hands, giving you the power to be efficient and safe at the same time.